So in week 6, I was out of town, but that didn't keep me from learning things about wine. So like I said, I was not in Indiana where I could measure the moisture for the grapes or really track much data for the grapes and see how they're doing. I was in a place called Dahlonega, Georgia. My best friend was getting married, and my wife and myself went down there to visit, and we decided to stay the whole week and make a kind of a trip of it. And what we did was we went to a couple of wineries and I learned some things about wine. So I'm just going to kind of make a quick video of some of the stuff that I learned. So the 2 wineries we went to were Wolf Mountain and Montelus. So I got to try a few different wines, and I tried a variety. At each one, I tried their Chardonnay, their Rosé, and 1 or 2 of their blends. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed all of them. I was really impressed by the red blends from both wineries because they were really unique. I thought they were really different from what I am used to. I thought the blends and the wine overall at Montelus was actually a little bit better than Wolf Mountain. Sorry if you like Wolf Mountain. But either way, I do think they were both really great places. They both had good views. I would probably give the view and experience points to Wolf Mountain, actually. And if you want to kind of just relax and have a nice time and look out over the mountains, I think that that's a better view, and I think it's a better kind of vibe. Montelus is a little bit more, I guess you might call it upscale, a little bit more quiet, but I really enjoyed them both. So what I want to talk about now are just a few things that I learned. So I'm going to pull up some pictures and just kind of show you some stuff. Firstly, something that I thought was really interesting is if I look at this, if we look at this grapevine here, I thought it was really, coincidentally, these vines were planted in 1998, is what I was told. So I thought this was really interesting that they have these old vines and they grow up to this trellis like this. And something I thought was really interesting is when I got up really close to this, I noticed that they trim these back every single year. And I asked, I met with, there were a couple of workers there pruning leaves, and I went and talked to them and asked them kind of what they're doing. And they said that every year they clip the new growth all the way back down to sort of this stalk, I'm going to call it. They trim it all the way back every year. So these green parts, they would just trim that all the way down here, and you can see where in past years they've cut that off. So I found that really interesting, and obviously I will take that information into the future where I can utilize that when my grapes get big enough. But what I really thought was interesting is these really old vines kind of growing this way. It kind of gave me some ideas. Something that I also found kind of interesting is you can kind of see it. There are wires here, the trellis, that are actually pretty close together, all the wires. So they kind of put a lot of them there, and I think that must help the vines grow straight up. Because if you notice, these vines kind of grow straight up, which is interesting. Because not everywhere does that, obviously. I've been in Croatia before where they kind of grow like a bush. They just let it grow on the ground and let the leaves sort of shade the ground to keep the moisture and the heat and dryness away from the grapes themselves. But in Georgia, they keep them up off the ground, and they grow the vines kind of straight up. And that was true at Montelus as well. So let me pull up a picture of those vines. So they do a similar thing. They grow, kind of the one trunk up, and then must trim it back and kind of let the new growth grow straight up. So I am going to use this as the template for how I plan to grow the grapes. And I'm going to, I guess, be adding more wire than I anticipated. This is a good example here. You can see kind of how they've got the wiring on the trellis setup, so that way they must feed the vines up through those wires, so that way they stay straight up. So like I said, that is the strategy I think I'm going to be using moving forward when I actually have the vines getting tall enough. And that's the Montelus sort of main structure. In fact, there you go. There's a good shot of it. And this is what the view from Wolf Mountain looks like. So, you know, take your pick. I thought this was pretty cool. So anyway, that is kind of what I did last week. Now, I did get 1 day of moisture data, so we'll pull that up. Now, as you can see, it was just Monday, and you know, nothing really had changed much between Friday and Monday. So that's all the data I have for last week. It was a really dry week, though, is my understanding, and when we got back, all the grass was pretty much dead, so it was pretty dry. So we'll see kind of how things go in the next week. Hopefully we get some rain. Anyway, that was week 6. I hope you enjoyed the short kind of download of a couple of things that I learned. My takeaways mainly are the structure of the trellis itself. I kind of like the way that looks, you know, and I think I'm going to try to implement a very similar strategy. The stalk being kind of, or the trunk, whatever you want to call it, kind of being one standalone structure that sort of tees off, let's say, and then trimming it all the way back down every year to that same place. And then actually the guys that I was talking to, they were bunches of grapes growing, and what they were doing is they were plucking the leaves around the grapes so that the sun would hit the grapes and kind of, I don't know exactly, but that's what they were doing it. That's what they said. So that's something I will take into consideration in the future when I have to do that. Probably won't have to do that anytime soon. And then overall, I think mostly, other than the fact that everything was on a much more significant slope, you know, my takeaways were very pragmatic, like how tall to make the trellis, how tall to make that stalk. I'm pretty much just going to try to copycat what they've done. I don't know if there's a specific reason why they have it whatever height at the different places, because I don't think it was exactly the same. But it could just be that it makes it easier if it's slightly higher, you know. So there you go. I may just do that. It gave me a lot of confidence that they were creating really tasty wines in this area. I know that we are in a dramatically different climate, but not that different. Like in that part of Georgia, it gets hot and humid, kind of like it does up here in Indiana. The difference is they probably don't have the same kind of winters that we do, but that, you know, I'm accounting for that by the type of grape that I've planted. So hopefully the grapes that I've planted can withstand the winter, and then the summer climate, although probably shorter, will allow for, you know, these grapes to grow, because this is what they're supposed to be able to do. But yeah, anyway, hope you enjoyed week 6 and on to week 7. At home that I'm trying to actually grow well, so I'm kind of wondering what to do, because obviously
It's too much, it will take some. That's not too, too much, it takes some.
okay, because it looks like these get pruned back all the way down to this part every year.
No.